we'll either if it ends, we just start again, and I'll
Do a
put
new one.
put them together. It was such an easy process, it shouldn't be too hard. Hey, what do you expect from two men approaching 40?
I am.
You are 40.
Yeah, man. I approached and firmly established myself.
What's the paintings behind you or posters?
Deep red, cat of nine tails, and bird with a crystal plumage.
So because they're blurry, all I could see was the eye in the cat and nine tails one, and I was like, what the hell is going on there?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what have you been up to? What have you been doing?
I have a TV show that I show run now.
Yeah,
Uh,
man.
so mostly doing that. We're bringing it to MIPCOM, which, if you're not aware, is just like it's the main TV content market for selling shows. It happens in Cannes. Has nothing to
Hmm.
do with the festival, although it takes place at the same venue in October. So we're prepping stuff now for that. And then we get back from that and we'll start post production. We shot season two in April and May.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and then I have two potential features now. I'm still doing feature expansion of Bath Bomb. I'm still developing with Rabbit's Black, but because I took this show running job, I don't have time to write. They're hoping to make something sooner rather than later. So they decided to pair me up with a producer to find me an existing script that I might want to shoot. Then the second project is Rabbit's Black. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say about this one.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. Sounds like you got some good stuff brewing. Are you still, when it comes to the real rivals, are you still taking from the OF community, or are you sort of just expanding it into just any sort of, I use the word influencer, but you know the what I mean, like what I mean. It's sort of a fitness Instagrammer or whatever.
No, yeah, it's still season two is still cast from people who are in the upper echelon of
Yeah.
only, but there's crossover between that and other realms of entertainment. We I wasn't directly involved in casting, but during the casting process, the team cast purposely two different contestants who, in addition to being high up in OnlyFans earners, are also have appeared on Too Hot to Handle and Temptation Island because they're
Okay. Yeah.
popular popular shows that are also on Netflix, which is kind of our dream target for a platform to land on when
Well,
we get a
it
mix.
it feels interesting because I haven't yet seen any real rivals, but I know that well, I assume it doesn't have any like nudity in it.
Right.
So it's completely where they come from is it doesn't make any difference essentially to the audience. Like they are just influencers, and it would be also quite nice if people knew that sex workers uh could just that can just be a job. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, that's part of the point of essentially the mission statement of
Of
the
OnlyFans
project
TV.
is to know of our project
Okay.
is I mean, I'm sure OnlyFans TV has the same mission statement, or it's at least part of their mission is to humanize, if you want to use that word.
But it
Uh,
is, unfortunately, it is humanize.
yeah, yeah, unfortunately, but also, yeah, just provide opportunities for them beyond just the adult content world because it's certainly difficult to make that jump.
And also, like, unfortunately, there is such a biological clock ticking on that sort of. You can do the sex work stuff for as long as people find you sexy. Whereas if you have a personality that is good for TV, well, then you've got a career until that shtick don't work no more. And it's a very different. That shtick don't work no more is applicable for both sides, I guess. But it's very much, it's that kind of world. And I think it's very good taking from a pool of those creators because you're not the audience knows these people, whether they're going to admit it or not. They know these people,
Yeah.
so they're gonna watch it.
We cast from people who are also popular in mainstream studio porn. I don't know how the popularity of North American mainstream studio porn actors translates to other countries, but we have a couple of the people that we have in the in season two. We have Emma Rose, who's
Yeah.
the most popular trans femme performer online, as far as I'm aware.
Hmm.
And we have, I think Emma has, she's also won more like best trans femme performer awards than anyone else in, I think, both the AVNs, XBiz, maybe Pornhub awards as well. And then we have Cherie DeVille, who's the most
Oh yeah.
popular and awarded MILF performer online. They're definitely known by people.
Yeah. Known by me.
There you go. So target audience.
So I'm guessing you've got no time whatsoever for films at the moment.
To watch them, certainly not a ton of time, but I like when I can't sleep, I watch a movie. It's because I don't like wasting time. If I can't sleep, I might as well do something.
Yes.
But I don't know how long the not being able to sleep is going to last. So I don't want to like start working on something. So instead, I
Yes.
watch a movie.
So you're one of those people. I'm one of those people. So don't feel bad if you are. You're one of those people that can put a film on, turn it off, come back to it the next day.
I don't like to, I hate to, but usually when I can't sleep, I make it through the whole one.
Okay.
Sometimes, unfortunately, more than one.
You know, we met last year, 2024. We watched a lot of films in a 10-day period. But other than that, I have no knowledge of your film history of
Yeah.
other giallo films, and that's about it. But what was the first film you saw at the cinema?
The first movie I saw in the cinema was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What the hell's his name? I forget his first name. British dude. His
Who
last name was
directed
Barron.
the first movie themselves?
Yeah, yeah, he was a music video director. He actually has a really good book that I
Steve
own.
Barron.
He's Steve Barron, called, I think it's called Egg and Chips and Billie Jean, something like that.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's it just talks about his like exploits as a music video director in that era in like the 80s, and meeting Madonna before she was anybody, and then being part of the machine that made her Madonna and all that stuff. Because that was a crazy movie
It really is.
when it came out. You know, that was at the time the most profitable independent film ever made. And, you know, there was actual suits,
Yeah.
mechanized suits with the mouths moved, and the
Dude's
people
in
inside
there jumping around.
just probably nearly died from heat
Yes.
exhaustion, I'm sure.
And it seems like, considering the comic was such an underground hit, it's so hard. You can't imagine that Eastman and Laird saw that comic when they first made it, black and white, selling it like a zine on the streets. And then all of a sudden you've got a movie, lunchboxes, t-shirts, cartoons. It's just bonkers to think how quickly that went from something that was a little bit punk and, their version of 2000 AD to being the number one independent sort of film that everyone loves. I couldn't walk past a sewer grate as a kid without saying hello turtles.
There you go. Yeah, I mean the cartoon. I had already been watching the cartoon. I think the animated series started in the late 80s.
Hmm.
Like I want to say like 86 or
I
87.
think it was 86.
So I had already been watching that as a kid. I mean, I was very young at this time. I would have been 5 when the movie came out. Um, but yeah, it was already a bit of a phenomenon because the cartoon had already been merchandised.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I already owned Ninja Turtles stuff before the movie came out. I know that we had at the bottom, at the landing at the bottom of our staircase when we came into the house when I was a kid, we had hooks where we hung our coats. The hook for my coat was, is it Raphael who wore red?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was Raphael's face, and my brother's hook was some. I think it was the blue. Who
which
was
I
blue? I think that's Leonardo. Yeah,
I think that's Leonardo.
yeah. So we were definitely already in it. It's interesting how that franchise just got, in my opinion, turned to shit later on. Like there were a couple of different installments of the animated series that I watched because my
Yeah.
friends. I watched them at like different stages because at different periods of my life, different groups of friends started having children, and it was just terrible. And there were some really awful movie installments as well, but I really liked the most recent animated
Mutant
feature.
Mayhem.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it was just I don't know if they had done this previously. It was the first one of the reasons I wanted to see it is because it was the first time that they were voiced by children,
Mm.
which I don't think I had seen before.
Well, how old was Corey? He played Mikey in the first one. How old was he then?
Oh, really? One of
Yeah,
the one of the two Corys,
the one that's still going.
the one that's not dead.
Yeah. Well,
Uh, um,
dead inside, maybe.
Feldman. I guess
Feldman. Yeah.
I guess Corey Feldman would have been, no, 1990. He was 19 years old.
Hey,
He was not a child.
all right. Still a teenager. But no, I do like that it was
19? He's fully into legal adult territory.
unfortunately that boy was put into fully legal adult territory far too young. So 19,
Yeah.
that's like 40 to the rest of us. Yeah, so the cast being age appropriate it is an interesting take because obviously they're teenagers. They should be teenagers. Like they should be playing it as they are.
Yeah, and I think it was also maybe compounded by the fact that the characters as well seem to be younger.
Well, yeah, I guess in the what was
Like
that?
the way they're animated, they look
Yeah, they're
young.
definitely sort of in that first movie they are 20-year-old men, if that makes sense. Like they don't seem like they are kids. They don't
Yeah.
seem like, and they would be, and not only would they just be kids, they'd be fucking knowledgeless. They wouldn't know the world, so they would be in awe of everything. But that first one's dark. It's not a
Yeah.
kids' film. Like when you're
Right.
watching it now, you're just like, okay, all right, that's not nice. They have to go out to the country because they got beaten up so badly that they had to leave town. It's like Jesus. It's just the Warriors, but in turtle outfits. And then for it to go into two and then Turtles in Time, or whichever the one is when they go to Japan, I don't mind two. Two is sillier. Three, I
Doesn't two
remember,
have Vanilla Ice in it?
yeah, Bebop and Rocksteady.
We're seeing that in theaters for sure. The
I
Vanilla Ice
definitely
part.
saw that. And then three went straight to video, and I remember getting really excited as a kid for that one. But you're missing nothing, genuinely nothing. Um,
I guarantee I saw it. I just don't remember it.
well, you're lucky. Arrow are bringing out a 4K special edition box set of all three of those films coming out October.
Damn.
I'll buy it, probably. I'll spend 45, $50 on these films, watch them once, and go, I should just get my DVDs. If I could get a VHS of it, I would, because that's one of the films that I think needs to be watched on VHS. I might have said to you, I see no point in having a 4K copy of Evil Dead, but I do still have my VHS of Evil Dead because that's how I want to watch Evil Dead.
Right.
Physical media takes over your life. Watching Turtles films, what else did you watch over and over again as a kid?
I don't have recollection of this, but I was told this by my mother, is that one year in elementary school, I don't recall which year it supposedly was, I apparently watched Return to Oz every day when I came home from school for an entire school year.
Nice.
And as I said, I had no recollection of this, but then I think in my late 20s, maybe even later, maybe early 30s, I rewatched it finally.
Yeah.
And it was amazing how the moment any given scene started, I immediately remembered the entire scene. And I had no recollection of the movie going into it. An incredibly fucked up movie for kids to be watching. Return to
I
Oz is
I don't think
so
I've
dark.
seen it.
Oh my God. It's it's Farouja Balk plays Dorothy, who is now in a mental institution after having told her parents about Oz. And
What?
she gets shock therapy. And then she's in Oz, and it's this really dark version of Oz where there's this queen who has like a collection of severed heads that she can swap out for her own head to change who she
Fucking
is.
hell. Well, this is getting added to my watch list.
It was directed by Walter Murch. It's the only thing he directed, like legendary editor Walter Murch. Yeah, remarkable movie, really. There's a friend of mine is probably, or not probably, definitely one of the most thoughtful gifts somebody has ever given me. I have a friend, Gary Reimer, in London,
Hmm.
and he I must have told him about this. I don't remember having told him this story, but when I went to Fright Fest last year,
Yeah.
I stayed with him, and as a gift he had got me there's a robot in Return to Oz called TikTok.
Right.
And there's this back Dorothy finds him and he's non-operational and she has to get him running again and he becomes like her guide through the
Yeah.
awful of Oz. And he has this plate on the instruction plate on the back of him, like a brass instruction plate. And Gary, a friend of Gary's, is the niece or nephew of the person who did all the metal work
Oh shit.
for building TikTok. And so he gave me, where is it? It might be right by me here in the
Yeah, go get
office.
it.
Gave me, yeah, there it is. Like an actual made for the film,
Oh,
but
sick. Yeah.
a double that didn't end up getting used in the movie nameplate that would be affixed to the back of TikTok. He had just randomly remembered that I told him this story and, got that for me, which is
That is
crazy.
lovely.
Yeah.
It's always nice when what you thought was a passing comment to someone else is a logged memory, like, oh no, I remember that.
Yeah, not even a passing I don't remember telling him the story at all. But clearly when I told it to him, he was like, haha, I know this. And he didn't mention, he must have like immediately plotted. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
I'm
I
gonna
know that
email some
means.
people. That's pretty decent. That's nice. That is nice. You're a horror guy, I think it's
Yep.
safe to assume. Um, but what was the first 18 rated film you saw, and how old were you when you saw it?
Yeah, I guess this is a story I've told for a number of interviews now. But when I was 5, I had a babysitter who was not particularly brave, and we were watching what's it called, Beetlejuice, Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, and he was frightened by it. And instead of, you would think if he was frightened by it, he would think, oh, wow, if I'm frightened by this, maybe this 5-year-old kid is frightened by it and we shouldn't watch it.
Yeah.
Instead, he thinks, oh, this is too scary for me. And he goes upstairs and leaves me alone. He goes upstairs to the living room and ends up falling asleep.
Okay.
This is VHS days.
Yeah.
Uh, Obviously, I'm 5. And my parents had recorded the original Nightmare on Elm Street on the same tape. And so after, after Beetlejuice, I just watched it. I don't know why I didn't stop it. I
Why
watched,
would you? Why
why
would you?
would I? And I watched it and it, scared the shit out of me. And I had, it had a huge impact on me because I had nightmares for a while that eventually developed into sleep paralysis. And I had,
Jesus.
from that age until I was 12, I had continuous um, sleep paralysis episodes that, Freddie was in.
Yeah.
And they, when I was 12, we moved to the States, and we moved to this very small place in the States, a kind of awful rural place with only 1,500 people. And so there was like a new trauma in my life, kind of pushed the other trauma
Yeah.
out of my conscience. So I didn't have the sleep paralysis episodes anymore for a little bit, but then they came back, I think around age 18, but without Freddie was no longer a part of them. And I still occasionally have sleep paralysis, but Freddie has not been a part of the sleep paralysis for.
Robert Englund has left you
Yeah.
alone. He's been
Yeah.
nice.
And I
So,
actually, when I was at Panic Fest last year, they did a 40-year anniversary screening of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Heather Langenkamp was there for the anniversary screening and did a Q&A, and I had the opportunity to chat with her afterwards, and I told her this story. She immediately told me that she had a fucked up babysitter story from when she was 5. Was she apparently had a babysitter who, man, I hope she was older, but I think she said it was around the same age, who forced her to smoke cigarettes.
Nell,
Yeah.
you got off lightly, man.
Yeah. But it was just nice. It was like a nice
Yeah.
connection, a nice moment.
It it is a nice moment. One of those is substantially worse than the other.
And that one I didn't rewatch either until not that long ago. It must have been in my mid 30s, I think I finally rewatched Nightmare on Elm Street. And I love it.
First one I like,
Yeah.
and there's one in one of the sequels I enjoy, and I can't remember which one it is. I think they go full crazy, and I quite like it.
Yeah. I at least like all of them. Some of them I love. The second one, holds a special place in queer culture because of you know, he's obviously, the protagonist is obviously gay, and
Mm,
but not portrayed as such, and there's so much maybe accidental subtext in it.
yeah.
There's a documentary about it, about,
At number two specifically, or is it in
yeah,
the
too.
big? Okay.
The, it's a doc about the actor who himself was closeted at the time
Oh,
and later came out, and how the making that movie influenced him and his concept of his own sexuality, his understanding of his own sexuality. And when I think Dream Warriors is yeah, I
hmm.
love that. It's just bananas. I mean, it got they ruined the ruined is the wrong word, because I still like the movies. They took it in a different direction. I think the first one is a genuinely scary film, even now, as an
Yes.
adult, and it's a really good movie,
Hmm.
uh, which was rare for any of the slasher franchises. Most of them are like bad,
Fine.
bad but good.
Yeah.
They're trashy. But the original Nightmare on Elm Street is like a good film, even by non-horror community standards. It's like a movie that would be considered a good movie to a general audience.
Yes.
And that is not the case after the first one. They're after that, they just become, oh, this is obviously appealing to people who are in that community. And I think the main reasoning is that he has a sense of humor in the
Hmm.
first, but then they just leaned so hard into that, that it made the whole thing silly. And even the, methods of killing became ridiculous, and the way that they were marketed too. Like I remember Freddy Krueger advertisements, like having the character Freddy Krueger in advertisements for other
Yes.
things on television when I was a kid, and they just turned him into like a product.
Well, I was saying this with Sam on a previous podcast that it's weird that when we were kids, we would have Terminator and Alien action figures, and Freddy Krueger was like an ad for stuff that kids would see. And it's like you wouldn't now put Jigsaw on a box of fucking cornflakes. Like, but
Yeah,
you did then.
yeah, for sure.
And they really were like, oh, you guys shouldn't watch this because it's, really scary. And you're like, oh, I better not watch it, but I'm totally gonna watch it.
Yeah,
It's strange how some of those slasher franchises sort of Freddy went very silly. Jason took itself seriously, but it was not serious in itself. And then Halloween from four onwards just became weird little dramas that happen to have Michael in it. And it's an interesting take on how they've each progressed with each slasher.
yeah. I mean, they all just became terrible.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
like different versions of terrible. I think that New Nightmare, when Wes Craven came back,
That was an interesting take on it.
that's really good, and
Yeah.
it was like meta in ways that hadn't been done before, which I guess he was always good at. I mean, he did that with
Scream. Which again, first three, obviously one is excellent, two is good, and three has its moments. But then four, I just didn't quite, I didn't care for that. And then are they on five or six now?
I don't remember.
Exactly. And like I watched them, they're fine, they're enjoyable. Jenna
Yes,
Ortega's good.
Scream is interesting because it's kind of like the most prominent example of an American slasher franchise that is actually in certain ways more giallo than it is slasher.
Mm,
Because one of the biggest distinctions between slasher and giallo, once Americans took
yeah,
giallo, stripped it for parts, and made slasher out of it, is that for the most part, slasher films are focused on the slasher, especially when they become a franchise. Like you're watching
yeah,
Friday the 13th because of Jason, and you're watching Elm Street because of Freddy, and you're watching Halloween because of Michael. And they're all either sort of subhuman or fully paranormal
mm,
beings. Whereas in Giallo, the murder mystery is at the root of that subgenre. So you don't know who is committing the kills until the ending. And they're always a member of somehow connected to the social circle of the protagonist, and you spend the movie thinking who it could be, and
yeah.
everybody's a suspect, and then when you finally find out who it is, there's a completely unnecessarily verbose um, monologue from the killer once they're revealed, telling you
Real
why they did.
Scooby-Doo moment. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, and that is exactly what Scream is. Also, in the most recent Scream, I feel like they finally acknowledged that influence,
Mm.
because the cold open is, man, what's her name? Agent Smith's daughter,
Oh,
Samara
Samara
Weaving.
Weaving. Yeah.
Um, she plays a teacher who teaches, I believe, specifically slasher in film school, or it might even be like 90s slasher franchises.
Mm.
Whatever the case may be, she teaches about slasher films in film school. And the guy who kills her, when he takes off the ghost face outfit, he's wearing a T-shirt that is the original Italian title for yeah, Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which is finally a
Mm.
direct, and then he also jokingly says on the phone to someone that he might have killed her simply because she gave him a C- on his giallo paper.
Right.
And that an interesting thing there too is that Black Sabbath, the movie,
Hmm.
1963 Mario Bava movie, the telephone or Il Telefono, one of
Yeah.
the segments of that, which is essentially the second Giallo film after The Girl Who Knew Too Much, even though it's a short, not a feature. And the premise of it is a woman, a beautiful woman, home alone at
Hmm.
night, getting threatening phone calls from somebody saying that they're going to kill her. It's the first time ever in cinema where you get the killer can, while talking to her on the phone, reveals that they can see her at that
Oh,
very moment.
nice. Yeah.
And in the ending, it ends up being a friend of hers disguising their voice. Like
Oh,
the concept of Scream, the
if
base
it
concept of Scream started in a Giallo film in 1963.
and didn't was it is it Black Christmas?
Yeah, but Black Christmas also used that
Yeah.
premise. And a lot of people, it's funny, I think I've even seen in commentary on Black Christmas DVDs saying that that concept originates in like I don't know if it's When a Stranger Calls or whatever, but people often point to movies like that. And every time I hear that, I think, has nobody seen
It's such a
Black
clear.
Sabbath? Has nobody seen Black Sabbath? It was way before, it was a decade before any of the movies you guys are talking about.
I read an interesting. It was like an essay in the Dread of Difference book, which was about gender in horror, and they were saying that film posters having you depending what's on the front cover is putting you in the mindset of the killer or the victim. So obviously, when the front cover is Drew Barrymore of Scream, your eyes are meant to be of the killer. So with that in mind, the whole film is having you sort of semi-root for the killer because that's how you've been introduced to the film. And I thought that was an interesting take on it. I kind of disagree, but it was an interesting take on it. And I think when films, especially when it comes to like Jallo stuff, it's always someone within your circle. It's always someone that you know. Having you go into the film with that sort of like, oh yes, we're looking at the victim, and we're meant to be like in the poster, we're meant to be the killer. So you almost have that sort of like similar knowing of like knowing that person. And I thought it was an interesting take on it. I've
Yeah,
butchered that
actually,
essay.
I actually kind of strongly disagree with that essay because what I have always felt, especially with Giallo films, is there's this kind of trend in the way that Giallo films were shot, and often when the artwork had a person in it, it was often a victim.
Mm,
And I forget who wrote this or potentially heard it in a commentary on a Blu-ray for a Giallo, that it was like a combination of a cross between crime scene photography and fashion photography was
ooh,
that these women were photographed both in stills photography for a poster as
yeah.
well as cinematography used in the film. And because of that, when I look at those posters for Giallo films that have the victim on them, they make me think of investigation immediately. I'm put in the position of
Ah,
trying to solve the murder. And I actually really love that about those posters. That often, if they show a victim, it's a victim who's already been stabbed or is bleeding. Like even the Tenebrae poster is the
mm,
famous shot of her leaning backward and her throat slit. And it makes me think like I'm invited to investigate this murder, which is
yeah.
exactly what the film does.
Interesting. I like that. I like that. You have to find out where you read it, whether it was a
Yeah,
commentary.
I can't
Send it.
remember. It's also possible, I'm just noticing now, while I was searching my head for the answer, my eyes were also searching my office, and I
Mm,
realized that I have a note of my own pinned to my corkboard that's half concealed by something that I'm now seeing says fashion photography meets crime scene photography. There's a possibility that I came up with that.
quoting yourself.
Yeah. But I swear I heard it somewhere, but it is odd that I have a note that says that. So maybe that's my own thought.
Maybe.
It doesn't make it any less valid if I
Own
didn't
it.
think.
Yeah. I'll start
I,
attributing you to that
I
quote. So,
I think that's still an accurate observation, even if I didn't read it somewhere with authority.
what was the first film you watched that you considered grown up? And by grown up, you know what I mean. It's that sort of, it's the first film where you watched it where it wasn't an 18 rated horror, but it was a film that actually had a commentary, a social commentary that you were like, oh, okay, this is a film. This isn't a movie. This isn't whatever.
Oh, oh wow. A film as opposed to a movie?
Mm,
I don't know. Because I don't know when my appreciation for that distinction would have materialized. Yeah, when you sent these questions originally, this question immediately made me think of something completely different, which was um,
porno. When did you watch porno? So, yes.
not porno, but the first time that I watched a movie as a kid,
Yeah.
thought I shouldn't be watching this.
Oh, I'll answer that then. I like
Which
that.
when I was 7, it must have been when I was 7 because I know this movie came out in 1992 and we were watching it at my brother's friend's house who had just rented it from Blockbuster as a new release.
Hmm.
And it was Basic Instinct.
Okay. Yeah,
And I think it was like the combination, I had seen I had probably seen additional horror films by that point that had maybe nudity in them.
sure. But no explicit
Well,
sex scenes.
it's the combination of murder in the midst of a sex scene,
Yeah.
where I was like, "Whoa!" It was the first time where I was like, we're in like living room at night, and I'm like, "Oh, there's no adults here. Like, we shouldn't. This is.
Damn.
I
You
know
know,
I should
there.
be watching this movie."
And then also you sort of been like, oh, I'm into this more than I thought I'd be.
I actually wasn't. I was really disturbed by that movie as a 7-year-old. I think because I hadn't I hadn't had much exposure to sexual content that wasn't just ridiculous.
Yes.
Like if you think of some of the slasher movies again, some like the Friday the 13th or there's just like nudity
Yeah,
for
there's
new.
naked fumbling and some titties are out, and that's that.
Yeah, and the sex scenes feel so not realistic.
Yeah.
Um, I guess the closest thing would have been again in Nightmare on Elm Street, the first kill that happens in that, but you're not seeing sex in the way that it's played in Basic Instinct, where you're there in the room watching.
Yeah. And it's sensual. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah,
clearly like making
it's
it.
not treated in a horror movie fashion, or it's treated in like a grown-up
Mm.
fashion. Even I mean it's Verhoeven, so it's still over the
Yeah.
top. But yeah, definitely a different lens on sexual content than I had been exposed to at that time. And I think because it was in a way that felt, oh, this is maybe what sex actually is like, and
Mm.
then suddenly murder.
Yeah.
It was like it was yeah, I remember feeling very disturbed by it at the time. By
Were you
that, but
aware of your own sexuality at this point?
not at all. No.
No. So
Um, and it probably made me think that I was not looking forward to it.
if that's what sex with a woman's like, no thank you.
Or just sex, period.
If every time you have sex you have to kill, like a praying mantis.
Yeah.
What film holds a special place in your heart? I know that you're very very dedicated to sort of giallo and those type of films of that era. But if you had to narrow it down to one specific film,
Well, there's a film that didn't immediately make me want to be a filmmaker, but it led me down that path. I was very much an academic through most of my school years. I was a high school valedictorian, embarrassingly.
fucking loser.
What a loser, yeah. And but the we moved to the States in 1997, and I was it was a very small town. I think I already mentioned it's about 1,500 people. The type of town that only has one street that has
Yeah.
anything on it. No traffic lights, no movie theater, no anything really, no hospital.
Miserable.
Super tiny town. We didn't even live in the main populated area of the town either. So my brother and we didn't have any friends that first summer. We moved there in June.
Hmm.
So we spent most of that summer going to the store in town, which was
Nice.
a place called Prince's, which was a grocery store slash department. Just essentially, you got everything there. You would
Right.
go there to get your groceries, but also clothes, and
Yeah.
you know, it was also kind of a Home Depot. It had your farming and basic building supply type stuff. And we would rent movies, and that August is when Lost Highway came out. And we watched Lost Highway, and upon first viewing, declared it terrible. We thought it was
What is
um,
this bullshit?
yeah, which was really just the gut reaction of not understanding the movie.
Yeah.
But instead of returning it the next day, we both rewatched it, and then my brother, I don't think my brother rewatched it after that unless he did it on his own time. But we kept it at the house for a few more days, and I rewatched it a few more nights in a row. I think like three additional times on top
Hmm.
of the first two, because I just there it was there partially it was because I wanted to figure out what the hell the story was supposed to be, but also I was just so gripped by it. One of the viewings, like the last viewing, deciding before I played it, okay, well, I'm for sure returning it after this because I already am going to be paying a stupid amount of late fees on this.
Yeah.
Late fees, what a thing of the past.
Bonkers.
But late fees on this. So that was like my most
Hmm.
determined viewing. I don't know if I was determined again to just like solve it, but I
Right.
was really paying attention. And there was like a thing that happened during that viewing where I just like for the first time ever realized how like this is such a, I guess, pretentious or silly thing, but that art had this ability, the more wanky term to use would be power, to elicit an emotional reaction, even if there's not like a tangible meaning to it, like an objective
Yes.
meaning to it. And there's just so many scenes in that movie where I would just be so gripped or disturbed or sad, and I had nothing to anchor it to
There was no
logically.
catalyst for that emotion.
Yeah,
It was just,
there
oh,
was nothing like I'm sad because this is happening. I'm scared because this is happening. And I mean beyond like the scary parts, even go beyond tropes that he incorporates from horror that normally make people
sure,
scared.
yeah.
Scary things in that movie that are just scary because you think about them.
Mm.
They're so out of the ordinary and you think about them. Even just like the really famous scene with what's his face? Who plays the pale faced guy at the party. We've met before, I met your house. Where? At your house.
Mm.
I'm there right now. Call me, and gives him the phone, and he calls his house, and
Yeah.
that guy answers the phone even though he's standing in front of him. That's like then Robert Blake plays that character. Anyway, so that scene, a lot of people agree is like incredibly frightening because of that moment. But that scene to me is terrifying the moment it starts. There's this weird sense of him not belonging, of Bill Pullman's character not belonging there, and
Yes.
that none of these people, they're almost like alien or not human in a way. If your entry point into the film is him as your avatar and you feel connected to him,
Hmm.
there everybody seems menacing and awful somehow at every turn in that movie, that the whole thing is terrifying even when it's not explicitly using means to typically make you feel afraid. And anyway, so that just sent me on a path of like watching anything I could get my hands on that Lynch had done, and then going in the direction of anything that Lynch led to via
Yes.
other filmmakers that I would read were similar or related to in some way, or movies that starred the same people that starred in his movies. And, I found Twin Peaks that way. And I mean, even musically, that movie kind of forever dictated my taste in music. There's the soundtrack was produced by Trent Reznor, and it has Nine Inch Nails, and it has Smashing Pumpkins and Rammstein, which is like one
Mm.
part of that soundscape. But then it also has Lou Reed and David Bowie, and it has like Barry Adamson jazz pieces, and it has Antonio Carlos Jobim in Sensitez, like probably the
Mm.
first time that I ever heard bossa nova in a film.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even now, every year at the end of the year, when I get like my Apple Music, I don't remember what they call their version of it, if it's wrap up or rewind or whatever.
Sure, whatever it is.
My like two most listened to genres are still like goth and bossa nova. That started with that movie. And I went from a kid who was thought that academics were the only thing that mattered, and that's what I needed to pursue professionally as well, something sensible like going into medicine, which I actually wanted to do for a long time, or a similar field.
Mm.
It got me thinking more about going into the arts. And like I said, it wasn't like an instant thing. I continued to be primarily academically minded for the rest of junior high and high school. I was only 12 when I saw the movie. But as I continued exploring all the things that it led me to, I eventually made the decision at 18 that I didn't want to pursue anything academic, and that I
Yeah.
wanted to do the arts, and then ended up going to film school. Definitely holds a special place in my heart. It's probably the most important movie I ever watched in terms of how it influenced the course of my life.
What is your controversial opinion on a famous film?
I mean, I probably have a few. There's a lot of movies that you're supposed to like that I think are terrible, but
Same.
I don't hate Aliens, the second movie of the franchise, but I think that it derailed what Alien established in a way that is directly responsible for all of the bad installments in that franchise.
I very much enjoy Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3. I consider them all very good, and I think they all do what they're meant to do very well. But in regards to a sequel to Alien, Aliens just doesn't fit the bill.
The problem for me is that Alien, first of all, is for me, easily one of the top ever made. I think it's as close to a perfect film as any film
That was the
that I
words I
swear.
was going to say.
Yeah. But it's a horror movie first, and
Mm,
it's a sci-fi movie second. And then Aliens is an action movie first, a
yes.
sci-fi movie second, and barely a horror movie.
Oh, it's not horror. Yeah.
If you look at it, especially if you read into the genesis of most of the subsequent installments in that franchise, they stumbled hard on reconciling those two directions. Like, especially Alien 3,
Yeah.
that started with a William Gibson script that was primarily an action movie that they decided was too similar to
Yes.
Aliens. And also, though, they didn't want to use it because it was like commentary on the Cold War, which had ended by that point, so they thought it was irrelevant. But then they brought in what's his face, who wrote Near Dark and The Hitcher, Eric Red, to
Mm,
do. He was a horror guy, and he wrote a very horror version of it, which they then were like, okay, but now it doesn't have anything to connect to the action elements that made the second one so financially successful.
yeah.
And then in subsequent versions, I think they had, I know when what's his face, what's his name, Vincent. whatever, who came on as director originally. He had a writer, and there was a writer, I think, that came worked on it somewhat previous to his involvement, that were specifically asked to reconcile those two elements of it, the action versus the horror. And then during that process is when Sigourney Weaver was officially attached, and she wanted to explore something that didn't rely on guns because she had become very
Anti-gun.
to portrayals of gun violence in film, and that's how the prison colony concept came about. So then they were like, well, how do we make an action movie without guns that's also kind of horror? And it's like they're just thinking of these, if they just had never set these action movie aspirations, they wouldn't have run into as much conflict or strap themselves into such a balancing act with these pretty disparate elements, pretty disparate approaches to the film between horror and action, that I think is responsible for a lot of the shoddier.
Yeah, they're
Uh,
all expected to be action films to some degree, and
yeah,
that really isn't necessary. Like, you've got this creature that is so devoid of humanity, and it's some hideous parasite that lurks in the shadows, and it can take out a ship full of people just by existing. And it's like, that's terrifying. That's excellent. Like, having only a couple of blow torches that they've rigged up to try and save themselves. It's like, yeah, you're not equipped. I think that's what's also another thing. Like, you're not equipped to deal with this. As soon as you send the Marines in, you have to up them by like, well, okay, there's thousands of them. And it's like, well, now it's a
I think,
war. That's
and I think also when they set these action film aspirations on themselves, they established a scale for the franchise that
yes.
they were then chasing in subsequent installments that was not necessary. I think you could have explored the even just the xenomorphs in a more rewarding way if each subsequent installment was a similarly smaller scale, contained
Yes.
sort of next step in figuring out what these things are, instead of trying to get into this. Once you're on the action movie scale, then you're getting into you're matching the scale with the mythos and turning it into this. Is it philosophical? Is it existential? Or is it just
Mm.
a load of horseshit? Like,
Little A, little
um,
B.
yeah, like I don't hate Prometheus. I don't hate that movie, and I don't hate Covenant, but compared to where the franchise started, they're silly to me.
No,
And
I know what you mean.
the expectations of opening up this world of the nature of these beings to being tied to the origin of humanity, etc., blah blah blah. None of that would have even been necessary or a thought in anyone's head if it had maintained the scope of a contained horror movie that the first one established. And I honestly think they could have had more meaningful explorations of the alien's origin on a smaller scale, where you don't have to try to tie it into such grand concepts.
I like this. I like it a lot because I agree. I was watching it was an in camera, the guys on YouTube, and they were recreating the intro to Alien, but themselves. So creating the miniatures and doing all the dry ice to make it look smoky and then comping in stuff. And it was so wonderfully done. But watching it, I was so compelled to be like, oh God, that first one is so good, and you don't know. You discover this planet, you discover this ship. What the hell is that elephant jockey thing? What the fuck's going on? Why is there
Yeah,
this here? And as I've said in other things, the unknown is so much scarier. As soon as I see that there is a hive of them and a queen, it's like, well, that's numbers. It's easy to be afraid of numbers, as in
right.
there's a vast quantity of them. But yeah, we got a vast quantity too. So as long as I'm not involved, that's fine. But this unknown being that is just following you, no matter where you turn on this tiny isolated spaceship, it's gonna get you. It's like that's so much more scary. And as a thought process for a bunch of films, that's more interesting.
Yeah, at least in the second one, at least there was still an element of, not entirely, they drift from this a bit, but there is still an element of the audience discovering things as the people do, but
Yes.
that's out the window once you get past the second one. And I think, imagine how just rewarding 7 installments of the series would have been if it was all, what we learned about them in this first movie, well, look at what we're going to learn about them in this one, and,
Mm,
you are only getting information as the characters in the movie are. They could have just continually been blowing minds with small details,
yes.
instead of establishing this scale where the only way you can blow somebody's mind is by trying to make some grand philosophical or existential statement about it, which you're never going to do effectively.
I really like Alien 3. I know a lot of people don't, but I really like it because I think it goes back. I think it's closer to
Yeah,
one.
I like it better than the second one for sure.
And
uh,
it's difficult because, I enjoy Aliens. Don't get me wrong. Like you, I enjoy it. It's just like I was saying, I feel like Aliens, and Alien 3 are all excellent Alien films that happen to have a shared world. And
right.
it's depending on what you're after. If you like horror, you watch one. If you want this sort of little social commentary on, masculinity and all that kind of stuff, go for three. I mean, arguably two as well. And if you just want an action film from the 80s, just go watch two. And if you want one, like if you want it with aliens, there it is. But I do think that one and three are my favorites of them
Right.
for a similar reason. It's a great film. It's not a good alien film.
It's fun talking about masculinity. Another thing that is hilarious to me about the second one, that I also think it's just something that didn't need to be introduced to the franchise. It was just a trend. Is it had the very obnoxious 80s version of what masculinity was, that
Mm.
there's a single scene in 80s cinema that to me, like, epitomizes the ridiculousness of how masculinity and men were portrayed in that era, which
Mm.
is in Predator, when Schwarzenegger meets Carl Weathers' character for the first time, and
Dylan,
they
you son of a
immediately
bitch.
and they immediately fucking arm wrestle. First of all, it's probably the fucking gayest scene in all of 80s cinema. And
The volleyball scene in Top Gun.
sure, I think this is gayer because
Okay.
it's like, it's if, as a queer person watching it, if you didn't know that it was accidental, you would be like, "Oh, they're trying to show these guys fuck without fucking." That's
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
what that scene is.
It's yeah. In musicals, if people are singing together, it's a code for them having sex together, and this is it. In action films, when they
Yeah,
arm wrestle, over the top is just Sylvester
yeah,
Stallone banging dude after dude.
and it's, yeah, exactly, and it's that very homoerotic, if you're willing to see the subtext version of masculinity, was so prevalent at that time and exists in Aliens and just doesn't need to be there. And it really pulls me away from the interesting parts of the first one. Part of what's interesting about the first is it's absent of
Yeah,
that element that was in popular cinema at the time.
I can link this. What have you been watching recently? Last question, because I've recently just started Alien Earth. Now that it's finished, I thought I'd start it. And having just discussed aliens, I feel like that's a good segue over to it. But what have you been watching recently?
Um, well, in terms of movies, very different than that. But yeah, I actually have been watching that as well. And it's actually interesting because I didn't like, I don't know how far into it you are. How far into it?
I've only seen like the first episode, but crack on, don't worry.
Okay. So I won't explain why then because it's spoilers, but I didn't wasn't into it until episode 5, but in even in episode 1 already is present is the same thing as they've got themselves stuck in this dichotomy of like it seems like two shows.
Mm,
There's it's a expansion of the universe in its exploration of xenomorphs, but then it's also this philosophical exploration of the concept of synthetic beings and
yes.
transporting human mind into a synthetic body, etc. Which something that's an improvement for me is that at least it's not a dichotomy between the horror of the xenomorphs and action again. At least now it's like a legitimate something that I find legitimately interesting philosophically and existentially. It's just still until episode 5 or 6 to me still felt like two different shows that weren't quite married to each other.
Okay.
But they eventually get over that hump.
Okay,
Or at
that's
least
good to know because, like I said, in that first episode so far, I feel very much like, oh, there's a lot going on in this first episode, and if it wasn't for the
yeah,
brother connecting the xenomorph coming to the planet Earth and then the synths, like if it wasn't for the brother and the main synth, sort of Wendy, I'd be very much like, why are we being shown both of these
right.
shows? And
Yeah.
obviously that will play out. But have you ever, I don't know if you're that kind of nerd, but do you ever play the Free League RPG, tabletop RPG of Alien? Yeah,
Nope.
look at me like that. So there's this great RPG, so like a D&D, but fully officially licensed in the Alien world. They have one for Blade Runner, they have one for Alien, all these kinds. And in that, they have like the history of the Earth and how Weyland-Yutani and all of the other conglomerates that own the planet essentially. And I haven't yet gone back to look at my books to sort of be like, is this a new take or are we still in here? Because
Oh,
you know what I mean? It's like we're meant to be going one way and now we're not going one way and now I don't know. And it's like, are you ignoring that? This is a pretty well established. So I don't know how I yet feel about the show. It looks nice.
yeah, it certainly does, and I like that they're well. There's a few different areas in which they have a good side of it and a bad side of it. Like the effects, I like that the xenomorph is practical, but
Mm,
then there's a lot of other stuff that's CGI that looks
yeah,
awful, in my opinion. And there's some really bizarre. I wonder what the division of labor is in the writer's room because there's some characters are so well written
mm,
and some characters are they've clearly just resorted to a stereotype and are almost unwatchably bad in my opinion and
right.
ruin scenes because they're such a stereotype. um, and I find that I've seen that in plenty of series, and it's often from what I've heard or learned from speaking to people who work in writers' rooms on big shows is that
Mm,
sometimes it can come down to a division of labor. It's like you have different teams writing
right.
or different individuals on a team writing for specific people, and so you get this like dynamic that they're not quite gelling with each other. But yeah, there's one character in particular that I'm like I can't believe this is the same series because this is such a poorly written, poorly performed, and everything character. And I won't
Yeah, let me
say
see if
anything
I figure out that person.
to spoil it for you.
In opposition to that, I did not care for Alien Romulus.
Oh, interesting. I like that quite a bit. The only thing I was as upset as anybody about the Ian Holm
Yeah.
situation. And it really pulled me out of the movie and almost ruined the rest of it for me. Like I was just, I had a hard time getting back into the movie after that moment because it was so
I would say it's that moment plus a lot of the audio callbacks that they did. It could
right.
like it systematically kept booting me out. I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. This looks beautiful. Oh, for fuck's sake. And then it's like, okay, no, right, no, right. Oh, come on. And it just kept doing it. I did find a fan edit, I haven't watched it yet, where they remove all of Ian Holm and tweak a few scenes and get rid of all of the callbacks. And I'm gonna be like, oh, maybe I'll watch that.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I mean, I think I was just primarily excited by I just liked that I went into it biased towards being excited about it because I had there in Canada we have these at the theaters. Our main chain here is the largest by far is Cineplex, and they do these pre-show programs. I'm sure these exist in the UK as well, where they've got like press packs for other movies with, you'll have some quotes from a director or the key cast, etc.
Yeah,
And there was the press pack for Romulus included Alvarez talking about how he wanted to bring it back to its horror roots. And so
right.
I went into it thinking, oh fucking thank God. And and the trailer really
Oh
sold
yeah,
that to
really
me that it
solved
was
that.
a horror movie. And I felt that it executed on that well, despite the parts of it that I wasn't on board with. It did it delivered on the promise of it being a contained horror movie, which I really appreciated. And I actually was really, really into the majority of the performances in that film. I thought they were really strong. The callbacks didn't annoy me that much, though they didn't not annoy me.
Mhm.
The only real fumble for me in the movie was the Ian Holmes situation, which also just didn't feel necessary like as a
At
plot point.
all. Yeah, it
So
could have been literally any other synthetic or Android, whatever, and I would have bought it. Even if it was like, okay, we've seen Ian Holm with the milk and the bubbles and stuff, so we know what we're looking at. Great. But yeah, so yeah, that's what, anything
oh
else?
well, for movies, um, I because that it's of life in film podcast. um, I recently rediscovered the films of Jean Rollin. It's like a French director who had done porn and
Mm,
then became kind of one of the most prominent practitioners of the French fantastique genre. It's
okay.
like fantasy eroticism crossover that has some connections with magical realism, although it's not quite the same. And he did this like slew. He was most known for this slew of queer vampire movies with ridiculous names like The Nude Vampire. These are obviously all English translations. The Shiver of the Vampire or Vampires, I don't
Hmm.
remember. Requiem for a Vampire. I think there's one called The Rape of the Vampire or Vampires or something. I had seen them. I was shocked when rediscovering that I hadn't fallen in love with them the first time I was introduced to his
Right.
movies, which was film school, because they're so rich. And it's bizarre to me that I wouldn't have picked up on that or loved it when I was in film school. But the only reason I've rediscovered them is Shudder recently put a bunch of them out, and I was just like in the
Yeah.
featured list in Shudder. So it's like I know these titles, and clicked and watched a couple of them, and it led to me buying like a dozen
Oh yeah, I saw you posted it.
special edition 4K versions from Indicator. I was like, what? They have collector's versions of these? Man, they're just similar to Lynch. There's like he creates this atmosphere that is him.
Mm,
Like there's no mistaking it for another filmmaker, and it's hard to pinpoint what it is. Similar to it's hard to pinpoint what Lynch does to make it Lynch. And but some of it is identifiable. Like he has this very restrained approach to cinematography that I'm sure is just being faced with the obstacle of a low budget and responding to it in an ingenious way instead of a
yeah.
lackluster way. And it's just so moody, and there's various like surreal elements to his films, and the dialogue is very, no one would ever talk that way, but it's like almost poetry. And the female characters, there was men would make female protagonist movies ages ago in like the 70s, 80s, but that were still very much movies made by men for
Yeah.
men.
Yeah.
Happen to have a female protagonist, and his aren't that.
Ooh.
The female characters are so interesting,
Mm.
especially in comparison to their male counterparts, and so like multi-layered and devious, but not in like a villainizing women sort
Yeah.
of way. Just in like a there's so much more clever than everybody else sort of way. And there's one that's not a vampire one, or maybe it eventually becomes vampire one. I think it's called Fascination. And I actually might be confusing this with another one of his. A lot of them have very similar plots. A lot of them
Okay.
are like a couple or a person goes to some old home in the
Yeah.
middle of rural France, and it happens to be
Classic
inhabited
setup.
by vampires. And one of them is like a guy who has just committed a robbery and is in hiding. And he's very much this like confident, sure of himself, good-looking dude.
Yeah.
In another movie, would be twisting everything to turn out how he wanted it to. But he's faced with these women that are in the house that he tries to hide out in, who are so many steps ahead of him the whole way, and the audience
Nice.
is in on their what they know over him and what
Yeah.
the power they have over him, and he's so clueless. It's surprisingly like ahead of its time in gender dynamics. But yeah, and I bought and watched a dozen of them, and because they're like these special feature ones they have, or special
Yeah.
edition ones, these booklets where you can read about it and stuff, and I've
Oh,
become like really
don't. I just got
obsessed.
Irreversible and the China Syndrome from Indicator, so I'm looking forward to all of the booklets.
Oh, I haven't. Yeah, I didn't even know. I wasn't aware of Indicator until I looked into these. And yeah, they have. I haven't dived fully into their catalog, but it looks like they have quite a bit of interesting stuff. And the quality of these, um,
Transfers, they're really clean.
yeah, and but also the packaging and everything is. I'm surprised I didn't know that this company existed.
Well, there's loads of boutique guys now that it's hard to sort of, keep up with them all. And they're really like, and then there are some out there that release absolute dog shit films, but in really nice packaging and you get stung by it. And then there are others who are doing really good old films that just never got a new release. And you kind of like, I don't know if you're just another one of those guys. I don't know. Blah, blah, blah. So it can be a bit of a Wild West world, but yeah.
I think one of the reasons I didn't know about them also is that I don't order a lot of my stuff online. We have, Vinegar Syndrome has a
Yeah.
physical location here in Toronto, and I shop a lot there.
Yeah.
And unless I've just missed it, I don't think they carry Indicator because I don't.
HMV in the UK, we have like they have a really nice section where it's Second Sight, 88, 101, all of them, Indicator, Relevance, I can't remember what it is, Radiance, I don't know. And it's you just go through it all. Like that's the only sections I'm ever looking at. And then all of a sudden I'll sort of be at the Criterions and I'll be like, oh, the Criterions are lovely too. And then
Yeah, this Vinegar Syndrome here, that this shop is like heaven, man. They have all, they've got everything ever released on Arrow and Severin,
oh
and
nice.
obviously their own label, and they have their partner label Melusine, that's all the like vintage porn that's been,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, transferred from original 35 prints, and they treat them with the same respect that they treat non-porn.
Yeah, they should.
It's incredible, and the basement of the place is a record shop, and
Oh nice.
they have an excellent OST section in the record shop where I've bought a bunch of Giallo OSTs that I haven't seen in other places. They have a great like metal section and goth section, and they
Nice.
have
I went to see
t-shirt.
Impetuous Ritual recently. You seen those
Okay.
guys? They're up there the same as Portal. I think it's actually the same members of Portal. And I don't think I've got the energy for death metal anymore. Felt really bad.
I, I'll always have the energy for all subgenres of metal, except for the shitty ones.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's been great talking to you. If you want to shout anything out, I can put it in the notes, or you can do it really quickly now.
Watch re-rivals on OFTV. Bath Bomb, my short film, still randomly in festivals. It's playing at Dead Northern in York on the 27th. It's the only screening that comes to mind. There's a bunch more, but
All right. Well, it's been lovely speaking to you. Thank you for this.
yeah, of course.
And
Thank you.
we should talk more or not. It's up
Yeah.
to you. I don't mind.